Tonight, we expose a world that exists only in your wildest dreams. The world of real vampires.
I fit I'm a vampire very much in the way that I dress and the lifestyle I live.
It's a cool, hip, and very weird world. From typical American vampire families.
We may have weird ideas and weird ways of life, but quite frankly, we are very normal.
To stockbrokers who step out after dark.
I work for one of the most conservative firms in the country.
To the hottest new vampire fashions.
It's an image. It's a way that people incorporate a mythology into their lifestyle.
And we go undercover to the most unusual vampire nightclubs to expose what really goes on.
When you get into the music, you get into the whole scene, you get into the whole swing of things, so to speak.
But in a nation that becomes strangely fascinated with vampires.
There's also a certain beauty and romance and allure to the vampire in film and culture.
There is a dark side, and not everybody is listening to the warnings.
It's absolute freedom. Who wouldn't be fascinated by that?
Tonight, never before seen on television, we go inside of Vampire Haven and expose the rituals of real vampires. And later,
If they're doing this to animals, what would they do to a person or a baby?
we'll show you what happens when some desperate vampires go over the edge. We expose the teen vampires who turned their twisted obsession into brutal murders. If you thought vampires were only in movies, you won't believe what you're about to see. Tonight, Real Vampires Exposed.
I'm Emmett Miller. Tonight we're going to enter the world of real vampires. That's right. We're going to expose real vampires. They're in every city and in most small towns. And chances are, you see some every day. And maybe, just maybe, there's one living right next door.
Seen any vampires lately? Just look around. You can find them on almost any street if you know where to look. The undead are almost everywhere as vampires become the hottest new trend. Noted biographer and vampirologist Catherine Ramsland knows why. She believes deep down, everyone is attracted to vampires.
If you're in a crowded restaurant, you say vampire in a conversation, everyone's head turns. Even people who claim to be horrified by the idea of a vampire and refuse to read any stories or see any movies, they want to hear. They are titillated. It gives us a certain sense of excitement. It's very visceral, very sexy.
Vampires and vampire stuff are so commonplace that fear of the vampire monster has all but disappeared in a wave of pop culture. Del Howison, owner of Dark Delicacies, a vampire specialty store, explains the attraction.
They're into it for the fun, but the scare is the fun. It's like being on a roller coaster. That's all very light, going to the amusement park and having a good time, but the whole thing about having a good time is that you're scared to death. That's what we like, a safe scare.
We're making the vampire into silly things like Count Chocula on cereal or, mouthwash commercials or whatnot.
Vampires are big business. Millions of dollars are being made by selling vampire goodies.
Vampire books have probably doubled every year the number of different books that have come out concerning the subject. I really don't see an end in sight. And along with that will be the tchotchkes, the little paraphernalia like the cookie jars and jewelry and thing as people pick this up and continue with it.
Whatever the reason, vampires are moving from fad to phenomenon. Noted author and vampire historian Leonard Wolf has been researching them for decades.
The fascination with vampirism is indeed a fashion. There's no question about that. It's fashionable.
In fact, the vampire is so fashionable that lots of people have decided to become vampires. All over the country, folks young and old alike are putting on black clothes, sticking fangs in their mouths, and color contact lenses in their eyes.
The youngsters are modeling their behavior primarily on what they have picked up from the reading of Bram Stoker's novel Dracula and or a fan's fixation on vampire movies, which have given them lots of models of what vampires look like.
There's room for every type. So, no matter who you are, what your background is, where you come from, there's room in the vampire aesthetic for you.
That's the contemporary vampire, not the monster of old. Vampire folklorist Noreen Dresser.
What vampire means now to young people is something very playful, even though it's a dangerous playful. But in the past, the vampire represented to everyone life or death. It was nothing funny. It meant survival or not survival.
Today's vampires have created a completely new subculture. More and more people are crossing over to the vampire lifestyle every day. Dr. William Cohn is a clinical psychologist who studies the trend.
As you leave the normal world and start to get into this strange sort of lifestyle, and you take on this persona and you start to develop a family of people just like you, eventually you leave the real world and enter that nether world of being a vampire.
Maybe not a world in which you and I would want to live, but it certainly seems to make these vampires happy.
I vampirism is the greatest expression of vanity, and I'm very vain, so.
It's an image. It's a way that people incorporate a mythology into their lifestyle.
Believe it or not, kids don't always become vampires just to spite their parents. In fact, sometimes they do it with their parents.
In today's America, we've grown accustomed to all kinds of different family values and different kinds of lifestyles. The Thomas family, Brandy, Sean, and Ashley live in a conservative area of Southern California. For the most part, the Thomases are a typical, happy American family. Brandy works nights, but manages to care for the house, all the family pets, and is an excellent cook. Sean has a steady job, and 10-year-old Ashley gets good grades in school, has friends over for dinner, and is learning to ice skate with the help of her dad. Perhaps the only thing that makes the Thomases truly different is that they've adopted a vampire lifestyle.
Yes, I'm a typical mom because I cook, I clean, I do laundry, I take care of my home, I take care of my family, I take care of my animals, and make sure that everyone's provided for just like a mom does.
Look at us. We are not the normal parents.
We're not typical.
We are
Although we are
untypical.
we are good parents. And I am very good to my daughter, and I take care of her very well. But at the same time, freedom of speech and freedom of choice is what this world is about. And this is what we choose. And if we were typical, we wouldn't look like this.
As you probably expect, the Thomases have made quite an impact on their neighbors.
I met the Thomases not too long after I moved in, and I'd seen them about 11:30 midnight, and they were all dressed up. And when they smiled, I saw the teeth, and I was like freaked out. And I was like, who are these people?
Others take a kinder, gentler view.
They seem to be down-to-earth people, or maybe beneath-the-earth people, you know, whichever way you want to look at them, I guess.
They're just like any other people, you know. They eat, they sleep, they work, they hunt. Just regular people.
Darling, could I have a sharper knife?
Okay, can Mama sit down now?
For that matter, this all-American vampire family even does the unthinkable. Aside from wearing fangs, they spend time together.
People think we're weird, but we're not. We may have weird ideas and weird ways of life, but quite frankly, we are very normal. We do the same things you do every day.
Our favorite family thing to do together is spend time with each other.
That's true, that's right. And we do that a lot.
We do normal things.
Oh, you can hear her hissing. She can come kiss you.
Mom cooks and cleans, and then after I'm done with all my homework, if she's up to it, she'll let me play the video games that she absolutely hates.
And while she studies hard in school by day and plays with her pet snakes by night, how does the vampire lifestyle impact other aspects of Ashley's upbringing?
Well, Mom doesn't let me stay up that late on a school night. I can go to bed whenever I feel like it on a weekend.
She won't go to sleep. I have to fight with her to go to bed. It's midnight, child. Go to bed.
I fell asleep with my fangs on, and when I woke up and I took them out, it felt really weird. It felt more natural to have my fangs in than my regular teeth.
I have not chosen to raise her as a vampire. What I have chosen is to let her do as she sees fit.
For the Thomases, it's a matter of freedom. The freedom to choose to live their lives as a family. A family of vampires. Admittedly, some might find that prospect a bit strange.
Do we frighten you? Would you like us to?
stockbroker by day.
Get on the phones all day and trade stock back and forth.
New York vampire by night.
It's a way of living.
And
I would describe vampire fashion as romantic.
we expose the hottest vampire fashions. Then,
When you get into the music, you get into the whole scene, you get into the whole swing of things, so to speak.
it's the vampire club scene.
Welcome to the fan club, the home of the children of the night.
But does it have a dangerous side? Plus, never before seen on television, we go inside a vampire haven and expose real vampire rituals.
So where did all this vampire stuff start anyway? The weird clothes, the fangs, the attitude. Like so many other trends, the answer lies in Hollywood.
Vampires. They're popping up everywhere, and you just can't keep them down. Soon-to-be-released feature films Revenant and John Carpenter's Vampires are just the latest in Hollywood's big-screen vampire movie procession. But this isn't how they started out. This is Movieland's first vampire star, Nosferatu. Made in 1922, Nosferatu ushered in a whole new type of cinematic experience, the horror movie, and its biggest star, the vampire.
Half human, half wild animal, destroying beautiful women, out to satisfy its unholy lust for blood. Night of the Blood Beast.
Planet of the vampires.
The vampire's coffin.
Dracula has risen from the grave.
The classic image of the movie vampire is still Bela Lugosi.
I am Dracula.
Author Leonard Woolf.
Lugosi was the perfect vampire for that period and maybe for all time. He spoke with a strong Hungarian accent. He had a hypnotic gaze, and the image of him bending over beautiful young women has become the model for all later images of any vampire bending over a beautiful young woman.
It's hard to believe, but they've made close to 200 vampire films. And if you ask any of today's children of the night how they got that way, they always say,
I've seen a lot of vampire movies.
I got interested in vampires from childhood. I was introduced to horror films.
And there's also a certain beauty and romance and allure to the vampire in film and culture.
as long as moviegoers enjoy a good scare, the vampire movie will remain undead.
Hollywood vampires may be sexy, but if more of today's vampires knew their history, they might not find vampire life so appealing. In fact, the real history of vampires has nothing to do with Hollywood.
Why would anyone want to be a vampire? As this trend continues to grow, let's take a moment to remember what a vampire really is. It wasn't that long ago that the most vile thing imaginable was a vampire. History's vampires are not nearly as sexy as the ones in the movies. Author Noreen Dresser.
If we put together many of the reports of what vampires are from the past, they're ugly, they're evil, they smell bad, they do the most cruel kinds of acts upon the most innocent people.
There's always been a certain unease that settles in as night falls. And while stories of the things that go bump in the night are as old as mankind, there really is a historical basis for the legend of the undead. Leonard Woolf believes that many of the vampire myths sprung up during the bubonic plague of the 14th century.
People were hurried into their graves very quickly. Nobody wanted to be around the bodies very long because there was infection. What did happen is that bodies were interred before they were dead, which produced people coming back out of a grave, pushing their way out of the soil, scaring people, thinking they were vampires.
They were known as vampires or vampires until they were given a name in 1897 by Bram Stoker. Dracula. Dracula was based on ruthless 15th century Transylvanian overlord Vlad Tepes, also known as Prince Dracula.
Vlad Tepes was a Transylvania prince who murdered thousands upon thousands of people, both his Turkish enemies and his own people whom he ruled with worse than an iron fist. He flayed his victims, he boiled some alive. They were hung up on stakes, vertical stakes, and hung there until they died. Whatever a sick imagination is capable of doing, he did with his victims.
The vampire myth began with mass murders, was twisted by novels, and was sold by Hollywood. We've always been fascinated by vampires, and now a whole new generation is taking the next step. They want to be vampires.
Coming up, a man who is literally transforming himself into a real vampire.
I'm creating that creature on the screen that I saw when I was a child.
And later, we go undercover to expose the vampire club scene.
It's absolute freedom. Who wouldn't be fascinated by that?
Plus, what happens when some desperate vampires go over the edge? We expose the teen vampires who turned their twisted obsession into brutal murders.
Despite what you've just seen, most vampires are harmless role players. They play in a huge underground vampire scene that's rapidly expanding in every city in America. You may not like it, but you better get used to it. They're here to stay. And believe it or not, they come from all walks of life.
The vampire lifestyle. You can buy the look, you can go to the clubs, but to live the life, you've got to make a commitment. In New York, there's a thriving vampire scene. Thousands of vampires work during the day and haunt the clubs at night. Vampires love New York. Like them, it's a city that never sleeps. This is Chris. He's a stockbroker.
Get on the phones all day and talk to clients across the country and sell them, trade stock back and forth.
During the day, he goes to work just like the rest of us.
I work for one of the most conservative firms in the country.
But at night, he transforms into the real vampire known as Graymore.
It's a lifestyle choice. It's like anything else. It's something that we're into. It's a mode of dress. It's a way of living.
The strange lifestyle of the vampire. Not the most traditional. Certainly not what Graymore's parents wanted for their son.
They hate it. They absolutely hate it. They don't understand it. They don't want to understand it. And they think that it was fine when I was 16, 17 years old, but now that I'm 33 and still doing it, they think it's time for me to grow up and not do this.
Then they may have a problem with Graymore's future plans. A vampire marriage. Stragoria will be his wife.
Graymore, he's wonderful. He's wonderful. Stragoria and Graymore are very, very alike. And every day we notice how much more we are alike, but he's unbelievable. He's unreal. He really is. He's opened my eyes to so many things.
This is vampire love.
We went down to Mother on 14th Street in Washington Square, and in front of the scene, I gave her a dozen roses, got down on my knees, and asked her to marry me in front of the scene.
If you want to be a vampire, you have to have the look. Makeup's important. Fangs are a must, and black is always in season. Check this out.
The vampire look is big these days, especially at night. As the club scene continues to grow, vampires are in constant need of new fashions. Because the lifestyle is see and be seen, it's important to look the part. Terry King is a Los Angeles-based clothing designer who draws her inspiration from the undead.
I would describe vampire fashion as romantic, going back to a different age. The chance to experience beauty in a very gothic and romantic way.
But for someone just starting out in the vampire scene, the question is, where do I start?
The first piece of clothing I would recommend to someone right now would be maybe a long flowing cape, black with maybe red satin lining.
After you have the cape, it starts getting a little more involved. For the well-dressed vampire man,
A white shirt buttoned all the way up to the collar with a little ascot black coming down tucked right into a vest. And then a long cape on top that flows with long, straight black pants. That to me is very vampiresque.
and for today's vampire woman,
Definitely show the neck. Bring out the top part of the neck. A little necklace here maybe. Maybe just velvet tied around the neck first. And then a corset. A long flowing skirt, very tight with a flare at the bottom. And then a short little capelet that she can take on or off.
and believe it or not, the look has some unlikely fans.
Actually, my mom tells me I dress a heck of a lot better than I used to.
These vamps feel good about the way they look, and when you feel good, you look good.
Honestly, this is the most glamorous that you can be nowadays.
I like getting dressed up. I feel more comfortable this way.
This vampire female goes out into the night and she's not caring about anybody. She's just out there, and if anybody gives her a hard time, they're going to pay for it.
Their costuming, their self-display, they're having fun wearing the kinds of clothes and looking like the kinds of people that other people will disapprove of.
We asked regular folks what they think about the look.
Weird fingernails and the dark lipstick and that looks really weird to me, but then that's your younger generation will do that.
I see something like a green monster. Green monster with a big teeth. Yeah, red eyes and very
They look different, and they don't look that bad. Sometimes they're better looking than people.
Coming up, the exclusive undercover look at vampire clubs.
This is a fantasy. It's fun.
Then, what really happens inside a vampire haven? We expose the secret life of real vampires. Plus,
If they're doing this to animals, what would they do to a person or a baby?
teen vampires go on a murderous rampage when we return.
There are basically two kinds of vampires. Those who pretend and those who really believe. For those who believe, it's no game. They've put on their fangs and crossed over to live the vampire life. And meet James.
James Holland has never claimed to be a supernatural being, but he lives the illusion. James believes he's a modern American vampire.
I say I'm a vampire very much in the way that I dress, the lifestyle I live, and that I am a night creature very much. I have my fangs. I have the eyes to go along with it.
That's right, James has fangs, and they're real.
I made the decision to get the permanent fangs after years of wearing temps and fangs that I could take out. By getting the fangs put in permanently, I knew that I could do that and carry on the illusion that they are real, that I am that vampire.
And he's felt this way for a long time.
At the early age, I became what was considered, among others, as eccentric. I was always kind of the dark kid around the block, the one that put on the makeup, dressed up and scared people. Did it in school as well, which gave me plenty of time at home to come up with my next trick.
And James has been up to quite a few tricks since he was a kid. For instance, he's been turning himself into a monster.
I'm creating that creature on the screen that I saw when I was a child, that I wanted so much to be real, that I wanted so much to exist. And within the step of wanting to keep things, to me, aesthetic, that I'm not looking mutated to the point that it's ugly, but more amazing, or something that people have to look twice at and really say, is that real or is that just an illusion?
His body is covered with tattoos and self-inflicted scars.
Some of the symbols that I've had tattooed on me have received the connotation of being vampiric. The majority of them are of Egyptian origin and also considered vampiric.
And when James is all dressed up, people give him plenty of room.
I can walk down the streets in New Orleans. I can walk down some of the worst streets in Los Angeles, or any city for that matter. People don't mess with me. People don't step in my way or give me problems.
Even though he looks scary, James just wants to be left alone.
I am afraid that I could end up killed one day for the simple fact that someone doesn't understand what I am, and that fear drives them to that.
To take on a persona that's very bizarre, very strange, very shocking to established society gives a person two things. First, it gives them a sense of, this is who I am, and then it gives them a sense of, I reject all of you. And that is a protection against being rejected oneself.
Here's a warning. We're about to take you someplace you'd never go on your own. As you probably know, vampires live for the night, and the vampire club scene is a big deal. Join us now for a tour you'll never forget.
Welcome to the Fang Club, the home of the children of the night. Come in.
After paying a small cover charge, you step into a world that's nothing like the one outside its doors. The vampire club scene is part fantasy, music, and fashion. These are the nerve centers of the vampire world.
It's mostly the music that I like about it. And when you get into the music, you get into the whole scene, you get into the whole swing of things, so to speak. And it's just a good atmosphere for me.
With new clubs opening everywhere, we wanted to know, what is the attraction?
Any movement, any cult, any organization can be positive in the fact that it does give you social support. It can give you a sense of belonging. It can give you the nurturance you never had. It can give you a place to feel safe. So that the good side of any organization is love and nurturance, identity and belonging.
Vampires gather, they kind of relax and don't have to worry about the stresses of mundane life. They enjoy their evening, they get together for company.
I just think it's beautiful and romantic because whatever time period you choose to go for is kind of a reflection of yourself and your fantasies.
In the vampire clubs, it's to dress up, to go out, to be among people who accept that you have this dark fetish. I've heard of some vampire covens, is what they call them, where parties will go on one floor, but on another floor, much deeper down, of course, in the bowels of whatever, that real vampiric activities are going on.
Real vampiric activities? We sent crews undercover to some popular clubs to see what actually goes on inside. In some respects, these clubs are like any other. But there are differences, big differences.
So I go into one of the vampire clubs, and I'm talking to this guy, and I'm shaking his right hand. Meanwhile, he's got his left arm out, and there's another guy right there in the club sucking on his wrist. It's a little shocking. And, he looks at me, when he needs to feed, he needs to feed.
I mean, I've done the whole, sucking blood thing. I mean, I like the taste.
Biting is very erotic. It's very sensual. It is the blood. It is seeing the red. Is feeling pain while in passion.
Today, drinking blood is very dangerous for the obvious reason that you can get HIV infection. There's a lot of blood-borne diseases that are very dangerous. And I think probably today that contributes to a lot of the shock value of being a vampire is how could these people possibly be that blatant to do something that we all know is life-threatening?
Even people who are firmly part of the scene have a hard time believing what some vamps do for thrills.
I mean, I have seen something that is basically outrageous to me, and that people will walk up to each other and bite and draw blood within a club, something that is just as irresponsible as unsafe sex.
Why is it that some people need to belong so desperately that they put themselves in danger?
You see, if you're really feeling unlovable, unwanted, and useless, the best thing you can do is reject everybody before they can hurt you. And the way you do that is to become as repulsive, strange, unusual, and bizarre as you possibly can.
We asked some non-vampires what they thought.
No, I have no desire to attain that kind of immortality. I would like to just live a normal human life and not run into any vampires if at all possible.
It's just another thing that people do so that they can be a part of a group and feel like they're a part of something that's happening, you know, and identify with each other somehow or other.
Vampires are just, they're cool people, and they're just very gothic-y, and it's cool. I don't know. I believe in them. I know that they're out there, and I know that it's not just like the blood-sucking kind either. That they do have a place in society.
We've spent a lot of time exposing the world of vampires tonight. They're very secretive, but we found vampires who were willing to let us into their world and give us their perspective on the scene.
While some vampires do drink blood, for most, the scene is nothing more than cool clothes, makeup, music, books, and movies. One guy who really knows the scene is Alejandro Solo. His fellow vamps call him Lord of the Fangs. He considers himself to be the father of today's Los Angeles vampire scene.
They're nasty.
He started making fangs 10 years ago and claims that there are hundreds of vampires out there sporting his teeth. Because he made the fangs, Alejandro Solo feels responsible for how they're being used.
There's people out there drinking blood. There's people out there putting people in jeopardy because they may or may not have certain diseases. You don't know. You don't know what you're getting.
Alejandro Solo doesn't put his life at risk and wants others to stop.
I've never actually ingested anybody's blood. I'm probably their best friend when it comes to stopping the blood drinking and the dangerous aspects of vampirism.
Eliminate the dangerous aspects of vampirism, and it's just kids playing dress-up.
And there's really nothing wrong with it. They're laughing, and there's a very harmless, fun-loving, creative side to it as well. And I think that's great.
To some, vamp is a lifestyle of grace and beauty.
There's a lot of beauty, and a lot of the people that you'll meet that are involved in it or interested in it do it for no other reason than their own fulfillment, and they don't harm anyone.
For others, it's the ultimate rebellion.
It's absolute freedom. It's freedom punctuated by brief moments of sexual ecstasy and interrupted only by sleep. And who wouldn't be fascinated by that?
This is a fantasy. It's fun. But it's just fantasy, okay? Don't confuse your life of fantasy with the world of reality, and you'll have a wonderful time.
Strange as it seems, these people believe in the vampire lifestyle, if not the vampire life.
Vampirism is sort of a form of artistic expression that manifests itself in your life. It sort of pops up and it makes sense to you and you want to know more about it.
This has got nothing to do with the dark side as an evil entity. This is just the dark side as a calm, safe place, a haven where you can take refuge.
There is one terrible secret vampires won't reveal.
Next, never before seen on television, an exclusive look inside of Vampire Haven. Plus, the ultimate nightmare. Twisted teen vampires go on a murderous rampage. When we return.
We told you we'd expose real vampires on this show. Our investigation took us to some pretty strange places, and now we're going to take you to the strangest place of all, a vampire haven.
As we've seen, most of today's modern-day vampires are interested in fashions and fun. But there are a select few who really believe they are vampires. They gather together in private places they call vampire havens, practicing rituals supposedly carrying on traditions centuries old. Nicholas Strathlock is a member of a vampire religious order.
I am the high priest and counselor of the Order of the Dragon, which is a vampiric order. My family has been involved with the Order of the Dragon for 13 generations. We actually joined into the order in 1563, and we still carry it on to this day. We are part of a genealogical background. It is not one is taken, bitten, and turned into a vampire. It's not done that way.
These vampires believe they are genetically different than regular people. They don't look like Hollywood vampires, and what they do is shocking.
It is merely a matter of spirituality, and we do, some of us, not all, but we do imbibe in blood. It is a matter of concentrated life force that sustains our spiritual growth.
While some involved in the vampire scene profess to be interested in the religious aspect, some just want to belong.
There's the hip-hop scene, rock and roll scene, rap scene, gothic scene, and vampire scene. I just feel more comfortable hanging out in the vampire clubs. They're more comfortable, more relaxing.
The clubs may be relaxing, but tonight St. Clair is a volunteer. He's taking part in a practice that could carry serious consequences.
It's hip. It's very, very hip. At its worst, we have people who actually take each other's blood. And I must say, I don't find that anything but an expression of a psychopathology. When people go that far, they're going there because of their psychopathology, not because of the contemporary interest in vampires or because of the romanticism of the vampire embrace.
We can't show everything that goes on in this haven. Frankly, it's too shocking. All we can say is that this is where these self-proclaimed vampires really do drink human blood.
I can't fly unless I'm in a jet. No, I don't burn up in daylight. A stake through the heart, that'll do anybody. You know, it's, a lot of that is just a lot of malarkey. But we do take our beliefs very serious. In that we do consider ourselves a bit different from everyone else, a higher evolutionary order, if you will.
Few believe that vampiric practices suggest a higher evolutionary order. In fact, the medical community finds this behavior downright dangerous and highly foolish.
Some vampires move in and out of normal life. Other vampires leave normal life and never come back. In the past year alone, there have been vampire-related murders in Washington, Kentucky, and Florida. Our next story is simply terrifying.
I came back in and I saw blood and I ran to the kitchen. My mom was in there. Then I ran to the couch and my dad was there and there's blood everywhere.
On the night of November 25th, 1996, Richard and Naomi Wendorf were bludgeoned to death in their Eustis, Florida home. Allegedly, the gruesome murders were committed by teen vampire leader Rod Farrell, accompanied by one of his faithful followers, Scott Anderson. According to reports, Rod brutally murdered the Wendorfs, after which the teens stole the Wendorfs' vehicle and made a getaway with a group of their friends. 4 of the so-called vampire teens have been charged. They're all from the little town of Murray, Kentucky. We went there. Reporter Jim Mahanes has covered the story from the beginning.
Murray's your typical small-town America, Bible Belt, USA. Everybody knows each other, you know, hometown feel, just real family-type atmosphere.
Did this quaint college town of 15,000 spawn a killer who was convinced he was a vampire and needed human blood to survive? Rod Farrell was not like most people in Murray. Rod Farrell was not like most people, period.
The stupidest question asked me if I felt remorse for killing him. He's just very strange. He had a just crazy mind, and he obviously was a vampire and had a lot of bad friends that wanted to do a lot of bad things.
He dresses in all black, long black trench coat, walks around with a walking cane. You know, in Murray, Kentucky, that is unusual.
Rod became interested in vampires during a 1-year stay in Eustis, Florida. When he returned to Murray, he got involved with a vampire role-playing game and recruited other teens to participate.
Rod played it a couple times with the group, and then Rod kind of took things a little further. Rod got these kids believing in the whole mystery of vampirism, and if you drink blood, and if you drink a certain person's blood, it would make you powerful or immortal.
They allegedly broke into the local animal shelter. Darla Speed was first on the scene.
I noticed that all our kennels had been open. Also on the east side of the building, there was an area of grass, maybe a 20-foot circle of grass that had been stomped down to nothing. And I could see black, fur, and I knew that there was a dead animal.
All the dogs had been freed, except for two.
Two puppies had been mutilated in the ritual killing.
Rod was apprehended and charged with the crime, but because he was a minor and his crime was classified as a misdemeanor, he was released, but not before inciting fear in this small community.
The hallmark of the true sociopathic killer is someone in grade school age or even preschool age who's torturing animals, killing animals, is morbidly fascinated with blood, is fascinated with death, and you can pick that up really early in a person's life. Just like any habit, as people start out doing that, as they grow and they evolve, they up the ante. So they go from animals to larger creatures to people. And by the time they're killing people, they don't really see them as people. They see them as a means to an end. It is a way to feel a certain way.
If they're doing this to animals, what would they do to a person or a baby was my first thought. If they're this evil to take something so innocent that can't harm you in any way, a puppy.
And Darla was right to be afraid. Less than a month after the Pound incident, Rod went back to Florida with 3 of his followers.
Rod wanted to take Scott to meet Heather so that they could cross over and be each other's mystical, spiritual marriage, partners.
Allegedly, the teen vampires believed the act of crossing over or becoming a vampire was done by exchanging blood.
Newspaper reports out of Orlando said that the first thing they did when they got into Florida was go to a friend of Heather's house, and Rod allegedly was looking for a knife, or so this girl says, because he had to drink some blood.
Rod took them to Shannon Yohe's house.
He was cutting his arm and drawing blood, and he was just talking all that crazy stuff, and I didn't want to be a part of it. Just told him to leave.
According to reports, after she kicked them out of her house, the pair allegedly went to the Wendorf home. Hours later, Jennifer Wendorf discovered the bodies. Days later, the vampire teens were captured. Reports say they'd recently participated in another blood-drinking ritual.
When authorities caught the kids in Baton Rouge, Thanksgiving night, Baton Rouge authorities said that they had fresh cuts on their arms.
Rod Farrell has been charged with first-degree murder and awaits trial. The other 3 so-called vampires were charged as accessories and are also awaiting trial.
These kids actually, cut their arms and drank each other's blood. They went to that extreme and thought that they thought that really meant something.
It's a gradual increase in stimulation that one doesn't notice. At one point, it becomes addictive in that the stimulation is needed to feel good. Once you go beyond that point, you stop thinking about what's right and what's wrong and what I should or shouldn't do. It's just, what do I need to make myself feel that way again? And that's why a lot of these kids go over the edge, not even thinking about it.
Most people can't really understand what happened in the Florida vampire murders. Most people.
In my opinion, the kids in Florida were a case of a couple of 15-year-old kids who took it way too far. They were probably teased incessantly by the kids in school. They were probably subjugated by their parents and told that they were freaks. And they had every right to feel like the world doesn't understand them. And it's a really sad predicament for those kids that they felt that they had to do something that drastic.
You decide for yourself whether these vampires we've seen tonight are harmless eccentrics or something more dangerous. But of one thing you can be sure, as their numbers grow, you're going to be hearing a lot more about real vampires. I'm Emmett Miller. Good night.